So Harry and Meghan episode 4. I'm shocked and disturbed, but I'm not that surprised. Um, the races in the UK I mentioned in the previous my previous videos about episode 1, 2, 3. I'm still shocked when I watch it, and at the same time, what a lot of people that might watch this video from the USA wouldn't know is that a lot of the UK, just like a lot of USA, which is outside of multicultural places where there's diversity, where there's progressive thinking, big cities, outside of big cities, there's a lot of people in small residential areas that don't travel and are not maybe affluent, so don't have a lot of money to don't really have the culture of educating themselves or being more worldly. There's a lot of people who just stay in their small towns and their small minds, and they don't really change much. So you'd think being in like sort of what's considered a first world country where we have a good economy, supposedly, you know, where we have access to a lot of things, we should be more open-minded and it is surprising to see because it's something that I compartmentalize. It's something that I don't want to face. It's one of the reasons why, even though I would love to live outside of a big city and somewhere where it's like you can get a 5 bedroom house for a quarter of the cost of the rent that we pay in London. Um, there's so many reasons why we don't want to move out of London, and it's because so many things are backwards. And as a member of the LGBTQ community, as a person that is not white, visibly, um, and also as a person who's generally quite free thinking, liberated, and wants to kind of express myself, whether it's the way I dress or the way I speak, the way I think. You know, was literally saying having this conversation with someone else who's like of mixed ethnicity and generally quite progressive, was saying the same thing to me, that she was saying that living out a lot of places outside of London are like unlivable once you've lived in London. And I know that when I was younger, a lot of the young people who were from London wouldn't dream of ever moving outside of London. As you get older, we kind of try to find ways. Everybody wants to move out of London City because of the economy being so bad. You can never really buy a house here anymore, and it's not really a great quality of life in that you work more and you have less to enjoy, because there's a lot going on in London, but you can't enjoy it unless you have all the time and all the money. So if you're not rich and you have to work, you have no time to. You're like so tired out on your 2 days off a week, if you get that, and you don't really have that much money to spend anyway. So essentially, you're just like a working machine because all your money goes towards rent and some basic food and travel, and then you have very little left. Now, if you come from a country that has a really, really bad economy, people still feel like they're in heaven when they first come to London, but eventually they will adapt and realize that they want better as well. They just feel like they're like in a little bit of a paradise because there's not people walking around shooting each other, like maybe some of my like a Brazilian person I worked with was saying, you know, just being here as opposed to being in Brazil is so much safer. It feels like a paradise. I can walk down the street with my headphones. You know, there's a guy I met from Hungary that I worked with, and who was saying, you know, London is still so good because back in Hungary, if I wanted to buy a pair of sneakers, I can't. Whereas here, I can do it every week if I want to. But that if that's your like biggest goal, then yeah, London is great for people who come from these kinds of places. But when you've grown up in London, you know, eventually reach an age where you want to get out from the pollution and too much noise, and people don't really sustain relationships because there's too many people around, and you get very easily distracted. You have so many options, and people don't stick. Relationships don't stick. There's so many reasons, so many things that are bad about London, and at the same time, it's kind of, you're fearful of experiencing things regarding like racism. You're afraid of racism. You can be afraid of homophobia. So those are the things for me. You know, anytime I do go outside of London, it is hard to find a place that is where I just don't feel like everybody is kind of looking at me, just because they very rarely see someone with a more urban style, um, or someone who is not white. It's just very rare for them to see, so you kind of stand out as well. Like I'm kind of tomboyish, androgynous, so I guess that's something they won't see as well as like in London now, as opposed to 10 years ago. I would see like a tomboy kind of stud, whatever you might call, like a masculine, on the masculine side, kind of lesbian or whatever. An androgynous kind of, or transgender type of expression. You just wouldn't see that 10 years ago. I would see tomboy lesbians that are like very obvious very rarely, and mostly only on nights where there was like some sort of gay event around London. I would see people close to central London and stuff where the event's going to be. Whereas now, every single time I'm on London, on the tube, I see a few androgynous, transgender like people, male or female, whatever. Like, I mean, I see a lot, and I see a lot more studs. We used to call them studs. I don't know what we're called now, but like tomboy, lesbian, look-alike people, people who look at me like me. I would see very few. So, back then I would kind of stand out, and now I don't. But if I go outside of London, I feel like everyone's looking at me, because they still don't really get a lot of transgender or androgynous expression. And I kind of wouldn't want to go back to that. I mean, when I was young, it was kind of the first time, even for me, I was coming out into it. I mainly grew up in London for the last 16, 17 years, so from the time I was 15. And it's just like, there is a lot. What I'm trying to explain is that I know there's homophobia, racism around UK and other small-minded behaviors, and mentalities, mindsets. And yet, like, because I try to avoid it and live my life in a way where I can progress based on the foundation that I have now, instead of putting myself into environment, like, it's exactly why I struggle to find a place that I would be happy to move out to, where I can have the good side of being outside London, like less pollution, less noise, and at the same time, I'm not going to be faced with homophobia, racism, and other things that I have experienced when I've gone out to any like places outside of London in the past. Like, literally, I've gone out for just a night out in a place that's not even in the Midlands, not even that far out, and I've experienced racism and homophobia in the same night, in the space of like an hour, from different people. And it's just crazy, because I think, like, what would happen if I lived there, you know? Would that just be abuse all day, every day? I mean, I imagine that people will do their best to just either fit in or be socially isolated and outcast, and just kind of live in fear, I guess, but it might just become their reality. So I know that a lot of the UK is racist, outside of cities where there has been a lot of immigration. And I know that those people from those other places that don't commute into the big cities, they don't like the big cities, and they, like, I've seen a documentary by Russell Brand, where he was interviewing people up towards the north of the country, about the British National Party, and the views that they were expressing, very typical of what you'd expect. Most of us, I'd say, that are kind of grown up in London or whatever, in big cities, we just wouldn't know about those people. We wouldn't feel the need to obviously research, you know, all these racist people. We just consider them ignorant people and do our best to ignore them and avoid them. We live in a city, we don't have to deal with them, and we're just not going to go out of our way to experience that for any reason. You know, unless you're like an activist and you're fighting against it and you really want to know what people are thinking and saying out there and what you're fighting against, then you just kind of want to live your life best you can. So all of my subtle experiences, I just feel like they allow me to understand why this is happening, but it's still very shocking. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been somewhere outside of London or somewhere that I've had to experience racism. And just knowing that over the last few years with Meghan and her integration into the royal family, that people from the UK were being so racist online, especially. I just find it very confusing that it can happen, that people have like no shame about what they're gonna say online. And that's the thing, when these people stay in their little holes in their corners, and everyone around them, I guess, validates their way of thinking, and that's why they feel that they're okay to think that way, because people around them share their culture. Even if other people won't speak up, if they think the same, then they're not gonna there's not gonna be any consequences for you. And if there's no like multiculturalism around, then they don't really get challenged. But when they go online, I'm just very shocked that they can say such non-PC things, and that they have the audacity to kind of think that it's going to be okay. So they put crazy things up online, like the picture of the baby chimpanzee with this white couple. I didn't even understand what they were trying to say with this. Was it like, at first I was like so confused somebody would put something like that up. I thought, are they trying to say that because the baby's like a quarter black, they're like making this racist meme, which is like just not gonna get any appreciation online. And luckily, like I mean, that's kind of a good thing, because when these people do go online, they do get like challenged, and they do get alternative reactions from what they're used to. Whatever reason they think that it's okay to put this stuff online, they get a lot of people from different places who are not stuck in previous centuries, and will challenge them, and then maybe they start thinking maybe it's not okay. Who knows? When they're living in environments where there's no multiculturalism and that they're accepted in their racism, it's just such a scary thing to think about. But yeah, I didn't really understand if this person, at first we were like so surprised, my partner and I, that we were like, is he trying to say that they're treating this baby, that the public, because there was so much going on with the public demanding that they want to see this baby, which is like a completely other issue. But I was like, are they trying to say that this baby is treated like a monkey that is there for entertainment, or are they trying to be racist about this baby? Because they were, before they showed this meme, they were talking about how the public demands that they see this baby immediately after birth, because their taxes or whatever fund the royal family, and so therefore they should have this access to their private lives. I've said in previous about the previous videos, about the previous episodes in my previous videos, that I find this like an unacceptable contract, like unwritten contract between the royal family and the public. Why is it okay? Like, I mean, I didn't even know that this is how the system works, that like we're funding them, their existence, that their like income comes from our taxes. I don't understand if that's what they're trying to imply, because I really don't understand how a lot of, like, I keep my head out of the monarchy and government issues as much as I can, like politics and media, and because I know that it's all nonsense, and I feel like that's all I need to know. But through this documentary, I'm getting to see more details, and it's mainly because my interest is mainly because I really want to find out the truth, so that I don't believe the lies. That's like my way of doing research, because there's no other way for me to know. If I had kept up with the stories about Harry and Meghan in the news and tabloids, I mean, that would be my only resource. And if I had been watching videos, like I watched one body language supposed expert, because I kept seeing all this stuff about how Meghan is a narcissist. And I was thinking, why are people saying this? So I was watching this body language expert, because I thought that if he's a body language expert, then maybe he's got a real a valid perspective. Maybe there's some intelligence behind it. And he was saying a lot about her being a narcissist, and it was pretty convincing. But I didn't want to base, because I hadn't seen it for myself in her. And of course, when you choose selective photos and clips, I thought, well, you're putting meaning to these photos and clips, but I wasn't sure if that's the meaning I would put. I could see that they could be alternative possibilities. And so now that I'm watching the actual documentary and I'm seeing real footage of Harry and Meghan and things that he's saying, such that he made the decision to leave the royal family, I'm thinking that body language expert is not that much of an expert, and it completely debunks all of his theories, talking about how much she's a narcissist. And all the comments and everybody, I just can't believe that these comments were happening, because I assumed that it was coming from somewhere. Even though I didn't want to make my mind up about it based on what other people are saying, I assumed that there was real stuff that people were kind of intelligent enough to make a fair decision about. For everybody calling her a narcissist, I mean, I thought there must be something behind it. But what I see in the documentary, I wonder if any of those people who are online making these solid claims with a lot of conviction behind it, that Meghan's a narcissist because of this and that. And I thought, if they watch this documentary, are they going to change their minds? Are they going to be ashamed about perpetuating all this crap without knowing the truth, without having heard stories from the horse's mouth, per se? Or are people just going to, want to defend their actions and, out of pride, not admit that they were wrong? I think I've seen enough up to episode 4 for me to decide that Meghan is for sure not a narcissist, and she put up with a lot of crap just like Diana. I don't remember, though, a lot of people calling Diana a narcissist. As far as I remember, Diana was always loved. Meghan seems to be in the same position as Diana, but for some reason with more, tabloids have always been there. So the only difference here is that Meghan is half black, and therefore she's not white, and therefore is the racism aspect is the only thing that seems to be different, in terms of, because people online are perpetuating it, but they're perpetuating what the tabloids are doing. And seeing all this, was surprising stuff. I didn't know that people went to this level. It was quite brief, and it wasn't completely explained that well. A lot is implied, but essentially I was getting the understanding that the tabloids and media companies were paying bored housewives to talk shit about Meghan, essentially. And that Samantha Markle was one of the people who was recruited, and also she was taught how to recruit other people to do the same thing. And these people were paid to essentially make nonsense content about Meghan. But why I'm saying the race is the main factor is when they were saying that the royal family were essentially using her as a scapegoat to sell stories to the media to avoid negative stories about themselves. And the thing is, Diana was treated in a similar way simply because they didn't approve, even though they chose her to marry Charles over, what was her name? Camilla? Or what was the name? Over the person that Charles wanted to marry. They wanted her to marry Diana, but Diana also wasn't really from the kind of family they would generally approve. So I don't know if she was kind of a compromise or they were settling or whatever, but they didn't really like Diana. They didn't treat Diana very well. She was more down to earth. She was more real, more authentic, just like Meghan. So I didn't really understand why that was as much of a conflict. But they also did the similar thing to Diana. It just seems like they're doing it more intensely to Meghan. And one of those factors might be race, because they feel that she's ruined their perfect white image, maybe. That's what it seems like the documentary is pointing to, that a lot of the public, dislike her simply because of her race, because they're racist. The British public are racist, essentially. And at the same time, like a lot of the black British population were like very happy about the change. So we can't really say it balances it out. There's these two extremes of people feeling like she's making a change, and the white British public, a lot of them, I'm sure, are happy about it as well, but a lot of them who are not so cultured and educated are finding it incredibly difficult to deal with this change, because for them, I mean, if they were already racist, then this is like just ruining their perfect image of the monarchy and how they relate to their monarchy. And that everybody who represents them in their white country is white, and now there's a black person in there, and it ruins their perfect the way they relate to this supposed extended family, as they said in the beginning of the documentary, that like it's hard to be British and not consider the royal family a part of your extended family, which I don't. But I'm guessing that a lot of very proud British people do, and they want this royal family to like to maintain an image that they enjoy relating to. And if they're racist, then they don't want to relate to someone who is not white and doesn't represent like their homeland, I guess. Um, Nonetheless, I believe that these people will have to adapt if they're forced to. I'm sure that this was like the first, but that there will be situations like this again, because like there was also a massive outrage, I remember, about the fact that Diana, not so much from the public necessarily that I remember, but from the royal family, that Diana had this affair with her driver or whatever, um, who was, I mean, the conspiracy was that the reason there was the conspiracy that they had Diana killed in this car crash, and that it was because she had had an affair with a Muslim man, if I remember correctly, and so she would have a baby who's half Muslim, and they didn't want that to be in the royal family. I don't understand why it would have been, though, because she's separated from Charles, and she wasn't by blood part of the royal family. So in the end, she'd separated with Charles, and then apparently she'd had multiple affairs, and she wanted to go off with this guy who was Muslim and have his baby. I don't understand why that was an issue. I think maybe just like an image thing. They didn't want this to be in the media. So, this was the conspiracy at the time. And as I said, it just seems like there was definitely like a lot of issues mentioned around Diana, like Meghan stealing attention from senior members of the royal family. And it was the same issue as we know with Diana. But people like princesses. I mean, they were likable characters. They were down to earth. People could relate to them. And the fact that the public liked them was the reason they got all this attention, all this popularity, and media wanted to publish stuff about them. They weren't trying to steal this attention, but yet they got the blame. They were told that they were breaking the code, breaking the rules, or whatever. So the only thing I can only really see that Meghan is in the same position as Diana. As Diana was, and that is being in episode 4. That is kind of referred to multiple times. Harry keeps referring to his mother. I think overall, I'm happy to see that they had a real relationship, that Meghan was not the narcissist that people are saying, that she is going to be a good mother. She's a good mother to her children, or to her child. I don't know if she has more than one now. I did hear recently in the news that they split up. So this is what I'm waiting to find out. We don't really follow, my partner and I don't really follow the news, because of course now it's validated through the documentary that all the tabloids are making up lies, and online people just perpetuate what they hear, what they read in the tabloids. So this documentary is great because we really get to see it from, hear it from themselves. And I don't know how long ago it was made, but I hope that by the end we get to see what happened if they really split up, because I would be sad to find out that they split up, because in the end they just couldn't really get away from this royal family who operate kind of like a narcissistic mafia. I was shocked to see that when they decided to move to Canada, that they removed their security. This was quite heartbreaking to hear, that they had no concern. His father, his grandmother had no concern for his safety, his life, and the life of their grandchild. And of course Meghan, but like more surprisingly, their own son and their own grandchild. Knowing that they're going to be hounded by paparazzi and people were like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how, like leaving him with only 3 weeks to find security. And I have a feeling that, you know, by sacrificing his position and, or like reducing his duties, that he would have access to less funds, I imagine, like less income, and that he would have less opportunity to earn or something like this, but definitely less privileges. It wouldn't have been comfortable for him. He's not just sacrificing, you know, his involvement. He's sacrificing whatever he earns with that involvement and with the duties that he had reduced. So I want to find out what happens in episode 5. But I was genuinely like upset about that. And also obviously the fact that they kept trying to kind of distance themselves, and not only were they given the cold shoulder, but they had all this stuff happening behind their back. That his father, seemingly like Prince Charles, was leaking his letters when he was writing his plan that he wants to move here and there, and like somehow it was getting to the media when he was only really writing it for his father, and it was like only the family members that knew about their plans. He said only their inner family and their offices knew, and yet it was being leaked to the media. So somebody from their offices, like, that is working for them, I don't understand how that works. Also, they didn't really 100% explain who are these people that are managing the relationships, that even the queen is being managed. He said that she goes off of their advice. So who are they? Who are these people? Because these people are being paid, I'm guessing, by them to give them expert advice on how to deal with the media and the public. Yet they've been doing this their whole lives, so I don't really understand why they need, like, unless they have somebody really like who's a professional, who's out there checking what's going on right now. They've been in this institution their whole lives. I don't understand why they need this kind of advice. They should really kind of know. And I don't understand why they would be so willing to give this control that they can't even give any sort of instruction for compromise, like no, I'm not listening to you this time. So when the queen told Harry that she was free all week to see him, and then he got a text from like her public relations manager or something, whoever this person is who manages even her relationship with her own family members, saying you're not allowed to see the queen, who is my grandmother, by the way, because she's busy all week. What a lie. I mean, who speaks like that? I can't imagine like somebody, like a third party managing my relationship. Like at first I was, when Meghan's friends were like saying I wasn't allowed to talk about it, or Meghan was saying we weren't allowed to say this stuff, I was like, okay, I understand. Like when Meghan's relationship with her niece was compromised because they told her she can invite her to the wedding and stuff, I was like, I didn't really get the reason, but I was like, I understand that their relationships with the outside world are managed, but the relationships between each other being managed, between the bloodlines that being born in that family, being born into the royal family, they're not even in charge of their relationships with each other. Like, somebody has to tell them if they can or cannot talk to each other and when. It just seems so extremely isolating. I can't imagine that they spend their entire life like that. So when he does go to see his grandmother, he knows that this has been permitted and arranged by a third party. So it's like, they only really see each other for like formal meetings. How can they ever really have a true family connection or affection or bond, knowing that somebody has given guidelines, instructions, um, like limitations on what they can and cannot say. What I'm surprised about is that he was surprised as well. It might have been that like up until this point in his life he was too young, and didn't really have anything to anything in his life that compromised this. But I would have imagined that he would have enough experience with people managing his relationships with his own grandmother, father, or mother, or whoever, that this is not that extreme of a case. He's married to someone, and now all of a sudden, like, that person is a scapegoat and they're disconnected, and all of a sudden he's being told he's not allowed to see his grandmother by somebody that I'm guessing he knows, that I'm guessing he's dealt with before. Somebody that he knows, this person manages my grandmother's relationships. It just can't be the first time, so that kind of confuses me, that he was caught off guard, that his grandmother either lied to him. Well, she lied to him because she came back and said, "Oh, I didn't know, I was busy. I actually am busy all week." And that a third party had to say it to him in that strict manner before she came back and said, "Oh, I actually am sorry, like I misread my schedule or whatever." It's just it's a bit confusing. There's the only thing I don't understand, how he can be surprised that this happened if this is the way things have always been. Because my only conclusion to that is that this whole thing with Meghan has created such a big rip in their family, that the dynamics have changed. That he hasn't experienced this sort of interference or management of his family relationships before, and that now it's completely changed, and they're doing things very differently because they see it as such a threat. The fact that they manufactured a statement between him and his brother saying that his brother did not bully him out of the royal family. And that's the other thing. So he said that he didn't say that statement and that it was a lie. They manufactured a lie to protect William when they wouldn't say the truth to protect Meghan and Harry. At the same time, though, he didn't up front, and maybe because he can't. Maybe there's so much they can't say because they feel like they'll be taken to court by other members of the royal family. But like, he didn't up front say that anything, that William bullied him out of the royal family. Like, as far as I understood it, it was like all of the members of the royal family. He said that William was screaming and yelling at him. Sorry, I had to do something for my cat, and now I forgot where I was, what I was talking about. So essentially, William was screaming and yelling at Harry, and maybe that was the implication, that William was unhappy about him wanting to step back from his royal duties, and that William was the one who came up with these 5 options, but yet these middle options were like the option that Harry originally wanted to discuss, like option 3 or whatever it was, weren't actually up for discussion. So they presented him with these 5 options with 2 extremes on either end, and they weren't really willing to discuss some of those midway options. So really, it was very, it just seemed like he was strong-armed or manipulated or something. And in the end, they came up with the decision they came up with, which I didn't really understand what it meant. So they had basically taken this extreme end. And I want to see in the upcoming episodes, like how it deteriorated. I'm very sad to. I'm anticipating with sadness. I feel like it's not gonna be. I might be surprised by a few things that are good, maybe, but it looks like it's going downhill at the moment. And also I feel I feel a lot of empathy for Meghan because I feel like after this situation she can never go back to the kind of very normal, healthy, happy life she had with her friendships and her career, and she really took a bad turn. And I think that Harry's previous girlfriends were smart to get out, unfortunately for Harry. I mean, he's a nice guy, but perhaps he should have really realized that he needed to take bigger steps to get out of this jungle. You know, if he knew that he was a genuine person and the other family members or institution members did not behave like genuine human beings, and that if he wanted to have a real relationship that was important to him, and he didn't want to have a relationship that was a facade and to maintain these images, marry someone who's happy to maintain, like, put up with all this crap, and he wanted to have a real relationship with a real person and be down to earth, and like he should have stepped back probably a long time ago. Although it was obviously a learning experience for him, he just didn't really know how it was gonna go and how bad it was gonna be. That's why he's not really that young. He wasn't that young when he met Meghan, but it just seemed like he was kind of young and naive, like he hadn't experienced that before. And he had to really see it to believe it or something. But I'm happy that I found out it was his decision to leave royal family. It was his decision to protect his wife and his child from all this sort of evil that is going on. It seems like they didn't really learn anything from Diana at all, even though as an audience, like people who've seen The Crown, for us it's very easy to see what went on. They're like still the same many years later. Diana was very handled, very manipulated, bullied. You know, she couldn't even get out. She was told that if she got out, they would like ruin her if she tried to leave the situation because it doesn't look good for them. It's like a gang. Like, you just, once you're in, you're effed. You're treated badly and you can't escape either. And so yeah, to see that, like, there was these situations where the same way with Charles abusing Diana and not caring about how she's feeling, whether she's happy or not, whether she's healthy or not, and just wanting her to upkeep appearances. And then that his son is it now he's expecting his son. He's part of the game now because he hated it, and now he wants his son to do the same thing. The only difference is he didn't love Diana, and his son actually loves Meghan, and he's not willing to do the same thing. He can see that they have an abusive dynamic, and they're expecting that because everybody else is desensitized and kind of psychopathic or sociopathic or whatever, like narcissistic, void of empathy, that they want Meghan to be the same, and Meghan didn't grow up like them. Meghan is full of empathy. She does not want to disconnect from the world in order to maintain like this fake life. And they're not comfortable with this, and they think that she should just get on with it. And this is why I can't really celebrate their lives. So when the Queen died, I don't understand why so many people were so upset and crying as if somebody personal in their lives had died and how much she's done for this country and all that. When it's all, like, when they say she's such a great woman, like, and they keep saying it even in this documentary, she served the country for all these years, but really she was just serving herself, because it just seems like the maintenance of this institution is about living off of taxpayers' money as their main source of income or something. It just seems like, you know, we feed them our private lives, we take their abuse, them invading our boundaries, are having no boundaries, basically, them invading our privacy in every way, and we're just showcased, and then we basically live like the royalty that we do. And they're not really willing to give that up, even though it's such a shitty life. From the outside, objectively, it's shitty, but from the inside, I guess it's all they've ever had. And they don't know how to live any other way. That's why they spend their lives maintaining it, even though it's crap. And they can't do anything they want. They can't wear what they want. They can't talk to who they want. They can't marry who they want. The fact that they still had to, they were saying in the documentary, they still have to ask permission from the Queen before they get married. I mean, what kind of country do we live in? I mean, we all have the freedom to marry whoever we want, but yet the people who are like, who own the country, rule the country, or whatever, because, I mean, they don't actually, but it's just such a game. It's like a dollhouse. I mean, they have like completely different, they have their own traditions, which are like, somehow, are they like outlawed? Are they above the law? What are they? Because it's so behind, and it's so, the conservative element of it, it would not be socially approved. It would not be considered a common freedom that we all have. They don't have it. And if they're royalty, shouldn't they be sort of doing whatever they want? Shouldn't they be living however they want? It's just kind of crazy, because I don't really feel like the public need this. And what I'm surprised at most is that the public is supporting it. And that there's so many people lining up to see them and shake their hand like they're celebrities. And I don't really agree with that element of celebrity culture, so I don't really understand any of what's happening. I think that it's everybody's fault. Everybody who supports the royal family in their public image, in their whole facade, their whole game, their whole show, is responsible for what's happening to Meghan, because everything that's happening to Meghan as a victim in this situation, and happened to Diana in this situation, it's all because the royal family want to maintain appearances for the people who feed that and say, we're funding your lives, and so we want you to be these fake puppets for us. Which is, and you know, like, and then who's reading these tabloids that are full of lies? I mean, what does it do for your life? What does it do for your life when you get up and go out of your house and wait just to get a glimpse of these people? I mean, you could literally be doing anything else, watching Netflix, a cool story plot that is like so much more worth your time and energy, cozy at home. I mean, who cares? Who cares about their lives, their personal lives? They're the monarchy? Okay, but like, we don't need to know anything else really about them as people, because it doesn't affect us, who they are personally. And like, the fact that they have all this, but that they're not good people at the end of the day. They're not good people who are doing good things for the world. And if somebody comes in trying to do good things for the world and then gains popularity because of it, they do their best to shut that person down instead of feeding it and allowing Meghan, you know, to prosper and do more good in the world. And like, if a good humanitarian couple like Meghan and Harry can't exist in that society, in that system, then there's something wrong with the system, because the system should be encouraging it. Instead, like, it can't survive in that system because it's so narcissistic, and it's like, they don't actually value any of the good work that Harry and Meghan are doing. They only care that they're not maintaining appearances, and who cares about these appearances? Who are these appearances for? It's for the public. And so the public are obviously admiring that and feeding that and appreciating that. Otherwise, they would not be enabling the media, the tabloids. They would not be consuming what these people are selling, whether it's the royal family or the media that is in contract with them. So they're manipulated by the media, and we're manipulated by the media. And so it's these tabloids that are in the middle, and yet everybody knows that they're drunk. So how is it that they have so much power? You know, it's the royal family's fault for feeding it, and it's also the public's fault for feeding it. But in the end, I hope that things change. I hope that because we have things like Netflix, we have independent documentaries or whatever, that people can see the truth behind things and that it changes something in some way. Because I would like to see a happy outcome for them, whether it's with the royal family or emancipated. I hope that their true love story and their happy little family gets to find peace. So we'll see what's going to happen in episode 5. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.